UFO, Sky Beast, or perhaps something else?
January 21st, 2023. Bursa, Turkey. Something appeared over the horizon that day. It was an entity. No one knows where it had come from or what it was doing. Perhaps it had mistaken the city's crocodile-shaped football stadium for a friend. It was a sky beast, the likes of which humanity had never seen before. Whatever it did, it left its mark in history. And here we are, friends, discussing the amazing creature that is the 2023 Bursa Sky Beast, which really was documented by a great number of people with amateur cell phone cameras, professional cameras in the news. There are lots of spectacular and, to be honest, scary images of this creature just appearing over the town with what appears to be an open mouth and an eye-like protuberance. So much so that it made the news from Turkey's local sources at first. Everybody was kind of scared, and I mean, if you know a thing or two about Turkish media, they like exaggeration. So in this article they say, now the clouds are starting to get scary. It was seen again. And then in this news source from the Turkish part of Cyprus, Turkish Republic of North Cyprus, it says, those who see it call it an alien. And here there was a TV show with some experts brought in explaining the stuff, and even the mayor of Bursa town tried to calm down the situation by saying, don't worry, everybody is on deck. I wish everybody a bright, happy day. And it also didn't help that there was something in the local scripture about the sky turning into a rosy shade of red on the eve of Judgment Day. And, you know, many people were scared. They thought it was an omen of the apocalypse, or more recently, maybe the sign of an earthquake that was about to come. But really, I mean, in all my life, I have never seen such a creature or an entity documented with this clarity from a lot of different sources. When this thing happened, Twitter was abuzz. There were a lot of pictures going about, and you know, for a slight span of time, I thought, wow, maybe we are seeing something extraordinary. But let's do a deep dive into this phenomenon. This, by the way, I think is the most awe-inspiring image captured of them all. Just the crack of dawn, the sky turning blue, and a big ominous mouth-like creature drifting in the sky. Obviously, now in hindsight, I know what this thing is, and I'm going to reveal it at the end of this video, so please stick until the end. Also, please consider donating to me on patreon.com/cmkozaman, and also try playing this video at twice the speed. It makes me sound like a cooler person. So let's do a deep dive. What was it? So okay, let's do a kind of scientific view for a second. Let's look at it objectively. What are we looking at here? The thing seems to have two extensions like winglets, so it's like a flat creature almost, but it also has some thickness too. There seems to be an oral region. There's almost like a mouth around, and so at least we can say that this is an axialized form. You know, it's been created or evolved or made in order to proceed in one direction. It has a front and a back, and that alone can tell us so much. You know, if this was a worm-like organism or a submarine creature, you know, you would expect a shaped like this to make sense. And if it has a direction of going, probably that means there are things it wants to eat and things or times it wants to get away from. So maybe, it's up there, a true bona fide aerial organism. What does it eat with that mouth? Maybe swarms of birds or insects or unseen atmospheric plankton. Who knows? It may even use that mouth to kind of engulf gases given off by cities or something. So if you imagine the atmosphere to be like an ocean, maybe these guys hang around in the topmost layers of the atmosphere and descend down every now and then at night, maybe, to feast on swarms of birds. Certainly this picture makes sense. Maybe it was a late straggler, maybe it was sick, maybe it was dying, and it hung on until the early morning. And there also seems to be an ocular region, almost like an eye. So does that imply a kind of sensory apparatus? I guess we shall never know. But obviously you realize that we are playing the speculative evolution game here. We are pretending as if this is a creature. But move on, there are creatures that look like this. I mean, there are ctenophores in the oceans. These are distant relatives of jellyfish, but they do have a distinct front and end, and they have these like magnificent looking rippling hairs on their sides. So when they beat about, they kind of look like strings of rainbow coursing through their sides. So they're always beautiful to behold. And this creature, this particular ctenophore, the Beroe forscully ctenophore, also look these up as Beroidae. These kind of look like this thing. I mean, I would not be surprised if something like this was floating about. If this really was a sky beast, something like this would certainly make sense. I mean, who knows? And of course, in last year's, if you've been following cinematic developments, there was a movie about a creature like this. It's called Nope. And in this movie, there's a sky beast, and it takes a variety of forms, and it kind of looks like a kind of floating, milky, gossamer-like apparition, for the lack of a better word. And I still haven't watched this film. I am going to watch it and maybe have a discussion session soon, but from all I've been hearing, it's a great film and really an insightful, kind of one of the better films of the last decade, let us say. And then, sky creatures and sky apparitions, there's a whole deep lore about them, but certainly things like the creature depicted in the movie Nope and our speculative sky ctenophore, they have been encountered in history before. So in 1891 in Indiana, in the town of Crawfordsville, some people saw an apparition. It says, a strange phenomenon. A horrible apparition hovers over the city at an early hour this morning. Some guy named Tam O'Shanter, basically, he was filled with dread and he looked to the sky and he saw a horrible sight, which was pure white and had no definitive shape or form, resembling somewhat a great white shroud fitted out with propelling fins. There was no tail or head visible, but there was one great flaming eye, and a sort of wheezing plaintive sound was emitted from a mouth which was visible. Now these quotes, I think they're a spectacular fit because they really look like this thing with this one eye and a kind of mouth region, Who knows? Was it the same creature? This time visiting the Turkish town of Bursa? Unbelievable. And there are illustrations of these Crawford beasts, and there are many articles about this. Like, turn of century Americans really liked having newspapers and writing everything down. It's kind of like Twitter today. So Mr. Switzer, I think two people saw this, and then also the Reverend of the Methodist Church, Mr. Switzer, oh my God, also saw this creature. And, he was like mucking about when he suddenly felt his attention drawn upward, raising his eyes with the full expectation of beholding something. He saw what both puzzled and astonished him. And it was nighttime, so that's another interesting observation, a bit like our nighttime observation in Bursa. But there was some creature propelled with an unseen force, and it was 16 feet long, resembling a mass of floating drapery, shaped like a fleecy milk-white cloud or a demon in a shroud, said Mr. Switzer. And there have been many depictions of these creatures. There's this thing which is kind of like a Photoshop job edited out of old engravings of jellyfish or related creatures called siphonophorans, but it really gets the job done. It really looks like a weird sky apparition, a kind of sky creature. But turns out in this case, the explanation was given as a flock of killdeer, which are these birds. They are seabirds, but they fly over lakes and land a lot of times. Caradyrus vociferus. So quite soon after this incident took place, someone came out on the press and said it was probably a cloud-like flock of killdeer floating at nighttime. And certainly birds do these kind of things. I mean, especially starlings form these amazing swarms called murmurations, and they take some beautiful, really artistic shapes, sometimes resembling entities or creatures. And it's not impossible for someone, especially someone as thick as they're minding their own business, and it takes a little something for them to look up into the sky. So someone that confused could mistake these for a sky apparition, I guess. And never forget that, if you think you have fake news now, boy, you would be in for a surprise if you traveled to the last century. In this century, it was a perfectly legal job for newspapers to employ people called rewrite men, whose entire jobs were to make news accounts more embellished, let us say. So maybe this guy said, I saw something white floating about, and the rewrite man, it's his job, remember, that's how he takes home the bacon. He says something white was floating about, and the rewrite man comes in and says, resembling something, what a great white shroud fitted out with propelling fins. And then he makes basically a lot of shit up and kind of exaggerates the story, and that's his honest to God job in the turn of the century. So who knows, but certainly even if this was a flock of birds, the resemblance of this account to what we just saw in Bursa is certainly uncanny, to say the least. But moving on, there are also these kind of apparitions called Medusa UFOs, which are these glowing, almost jellyfish-like things people see in the dead of the night. And once again, these happen in recent times as well, and many people capture them with their cell phones and anything else they record things with. Quite a lot of times they turn up on dash cam recordings that people otherwise use for insurance purposes. But that's a no-go as well, because these are always documented sites of basically satellite launches or rocket launchers, at times even launches of the Falcon Heavy rockets used by Elon Musk's company. So, well, that's a bummer. But certainly there have been UFOs which kind of resemble organic creatures. So maybe there's something to examine there as well. So we're not going to examine every UFO recording or every case where a UFO kind of looks like a jellyfish, but there are these cases in which UFOs kind of look like these jellyfish-like apparitions with like a torpedo-shaped body and a constant stream of light coming from behind them. Not like a jetpack or a rocket exhaust, but more like the tail or the tentacles of a great celestial jellyfish. And this is the famous coin incident, in which such a UFO kind of used its rays of light, tail rays, let us say, to immobilize a helicopter. And it was also seen by people on the ground, so multiple people, including army pilots, saw this thing, and it's It's on record as one of the least explainable and probably the strangest UFO cases that we know of. And there has been an interpretation of this thing basically as a giant sky floating stenophore creature. And it says here in this documentation of aerial organisms, it's recorded as a large predatory stenophore of about 20 meters long. It has numerous light-emitting organs on its body which serve to attract aerial plankton and other small animals, which are caught by the two gigantic feeding tentacles. And it's clear to see how this thing, what they thought was a tail beam, was actually the enormous tail tentacles immobilizing the aircraft, and people saw it on the ground too. So it was a genuine aerial organism. And obviously, I mean, I've kind of been playing a trick on you. This is just one Spec-Evo interpretation of this UFO case. But you could almost take any UFO case and interpret it as a sky creature. And this is what exactly the extremely talented Spec-Evo artist Tim Morris has done. He has a website called the International Aerial Organism Registry at atmosmonsters.weebly.com. So please go and visit this site. And my kind regards to Tim Morris as well. I know he's a popular viewer of my channel's content, and he's been a long time online friend. And I know one day we will meet and share a beer and have exchange our adventures and draw creatures together. But he's one of the best speculative evolution artists period out there. And so please look up atmosmonsters.weebly.com. That's his website. And he's got many projects. Oh, no, not now. Not now, Chrome. What are you doing? Oh, my God. Okay, so there it is. Tim Morris's International Aerial Organism Registry. Go and find out for numerous aerial jellyfish, UFO creatures, and the whole shebang. And these cases also remind me of this one certain surreal painting, The Lovers, by the famous surrealist artist and photographer Man Ray. Certainly this picture has a formative place in my life because my father, who was also a photographer, this was one of his boyhood poster kinds of things. So he had a framed print of this hanging at our house when we were growing up. So there, and I always remember looking up at this thing, and thinking maybe what if the lips were a UFO or something. Certainly it was doing something to my mind, because when I look back at my illustrations or drawings now, the background kind of looks the same, and there are these unknown castles or stuff floating about. So there, it has left a mark on me. And early surrealist artwork, it's a fascinating place to go if you're interested in science fiction art or creature art or speculative evolution art. Many people with a scientific inclination avoid this field because it never registers to us, but go check it out. Early surrealists, they were a cool bunch. But what was it really? Okay, now the game time is over, the Spec-Evo time is over, and we're just gonna blow this thing open. What I didn't tell you was, after it was seen, this amazing congruent mouth creature here, it was observed to be breaking down. It kind of first took on the shape of a foreskin, and then it just dissolved about. And it was a cloud, unfortunately. And this region, well, let's look at our map section. The city of Bursa lies in the foothills of this great big mountain called Uludağ, which is also a popular skiing resort, and it's also right next to the sea, from the Sea of Marmara. So what happens is, a lot of the times, moisture-bearing air comes in from the sea and kind of crashes against the mountain and kind of forms these weird clouds in this region. Heck, this wasn't the first Sky Beast. I mean, in January 2023, a few days before this creature, something like a big milky creature was observed. And I'm just giving them these nicknames. Maybe, if we continue the speculative evolution game, we kind of imagine what they would be if they were other sky beasts. So this creature was seen like a Moby Dick kind of thing, big, milky. And then in September 2020, something like this cloud was again observed near Bursa, but I nicknamed it the tardigrade. Once again, the forces of the wind sculpt this in such a way that it seems to have a front section and even something like a mouth. Almost also looks like a foreskin, but I'm just gonna ignore that for now. And then in September 2020, once again, another strange cloud was seen, and they called it the God's handwriting. Maybe some like, I don't know what it says here. Maybe the end is nigh, or repent sinners, or God is great, or something like this. And many people thought this was clouds in the shape of Arabic handwriting. So many people were scared, and it made the news. And the news, because they're so smart, they make a point of placing everything into circles so people register them more clearly. And then in August 2020, there was this cloud apparition called the cat. I kid you not. I mean, if you Google cat cloud news Turkey, this thing really happened. A small a cloud creature in the shape of a small mischievous kitten was observed in the sky above the city of Bursa in Turkey. And then an honorable mention goes to the Istanbul scary face, observed in September 2021 during the course of a violent thunderstorm. And briefly, the clouds took on the shape of a humanoid face. Some thought it was the Decal, some thought it was Satan, old Satan, or some thought it was Voldemort. In some news accounts, it says Voldemort clouds were observed around Istanbul. So there. Certainly, I mean, it's a human thing to look at clouds and see shapes in them. We are pattern detecting creatures, so it's not surprising why so many of these outcomes come about, basically. But the particular phenomenon that creates these clouds is called a lenticular cloud formation. Once again, once an airflow encounters a kind of solid mountain range, the moisture is deposited in the waves among basically the air forms waves to assume the contours of the mountain, and then among these waves, these clouds kind of form as moisture is deposited, and these take the wildest and most beautiful forms. I mean, this is from the Canadian or the Alaskan coast, and the shapes are just like a scientific diagram. There's a UFO shape, there's a kind of Starship Enterprise shape, there's this great celestial dragon shape. Unbelievable. So beautiful. So the phenomenon is known as a lenticular cloud, and if you Google these, according to experts, they are believed to be one of the most common explanations for UFO sightings across the world. So there, everyone. It was a cloud, but it was certainly fun to imagine what it would be like if it was an actual sky beast. Heck, I even photographed lenticular clouds myself once as I was driving with my family. We were crossing the Bursa and also the Kütahya region again, so a kind of comparable part. And dawn was breaking and the sky was scarlet red, seeping into the cold night blue of the bygone night. And these things were coming out. And it was just fantastic. I always likened them to these amazing Rugose floaters created by the master speculative evolution artist Wayne Barlow in his book Expedition. And I knew it was a cloud, but I couldn't stop thinking what it would be like if it was a sky beast. And certainly, I mean, beyond just sky beasts or clouds, once again, this video should serve you as an example of what just persistent research and a kind of open-minded thinking methodology can do for any phenomenon out there. You can just use the internet and use verified sources and photographs to create this narrative about basically everything. And Of course, these sky creatures, they're particularly compelling. This place is real, by the way. I mean, don't even ask me about it. These sky creatures are very compelling because, it's one of these things that kind of sound plausible, and the photographs are just amazingly cool, and you want to believe in them. But more than the subject itself, I just wanted to show you how you can do a kind of concise research project, bring about examples from biology, zoology, media studies, local internet, film history, local films, newspaper archives, ornithology, and biology and zoology and space travel, UFO lore, UFO folklore, works of fellow speculative evolution artists, works by surrealists and other artists, and finally, proper scientific documentation in order to consider an issue in all its aspects. And, when you do that, it's just really fun, and you just have an overall more satisfying life, and you become a more interesting person, I hope, to listen. Once again, thank you for watching, and please consider supporting me on patreon.com/cmkozeman. Also, try to consider supporting Prometheum for her contribution to this video's intro segment at buymeacoffee.com Prometheum S. And I am doing these videos out of the goodness of my heart. I still have a day job to go to, and if you already support my videos, maybe refer it to a friend. If you're donating $1, maybe crank it up to $2. Every penny helps. And once again, I am thankful to all my patrons on patreon.com. And now I am tiering my patrons. And the tiers don't have different gifts, but the top patrons, the Giga Lenticular Star Leviathan patrons here, who donate more than $20 per month, they get a personal shout out from me. So thank you, Alexander the Irishman. Thank you, Daniel Rusis de Mello. Thank you, Demit Tishin. Thank you, Ernst French. Thank you, Finley Elliott. Thank you, thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Hedrigal. Thank you, Ian Ribiero. Thank you, Ibn Krut. Thank you, Jakub Bobrovics. He's also a really cool friend online. Thank you, Matthew Kashevarov. Thank you, Mike Trainer. He's also a really good online friend and one of the top collectors of my artwork in Canada. So thanks so much, Mike. And thank you, Nicola Gibson. And then we have our Mega Medusoid Bio UFO patrons. These people contribute more than between $5 and $20 per month, and I'm thankful to you all. Thank you so much. In bigger, longer videos, I also read all of their names out loud, and I cannot thank you enough. I mean, you guys, maybe a $5 or something, it might be a small currency for you, but for me, it makes a world of difference. But then we have my Super Sky Beast patrons. Even if you donate $1 per month, even if you donate, 20 cents per month, you are in this list. And all of you make this channel possible. So I cannot thank you enough. If you support me on Patreon, you can download this PDF and you can see some of my surprise sketches and artwork and paintings that do not get shown anywhere else. So thank you all and have a nice day. This was CM Kozeman. Goodbye and keep watching the skies.